Yes. We love you, Comrade Cain. He is with us in spirit fully. So welcome to this incredible panel. That it's an honor to be sitting up here with these incredible comrades, inside, outside, teaching, organizing, and solidarity across the prison wall. And I wanted to just kick off with a quote from the great Maya Angelou. She says, "Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps, hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope." And I think everyone on this panel is essentially a Spider-Man, climbing across these walls, literally and metaphorically, in the name of justice, in the name of solidarity. And so I think we should start really, we can just go down the line. If you could share about sort of your wall scaling, share about your work, your organization, what you do, how you do it, and the journey that led you there to cross those walls.
Yeah, let's see. What's up, y'all? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. I'm Saphir. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a formerly incarcerated revolutionary abolitionist. I'm from Philly. I spent 12 and a half years in prison in PA. And early on in my incarceration, I was active in the Muslim community. In PA prisons, the Muslim community is the largest, most organized social group inside of the prison. Just like anybody else, I wanted to learn. And I started studying, and eventually we would go on to do all types of educational programs. We were doing mutual aid. We were doing the commissary disbursements, hygiene disbursements, all of these different things. We didn't use that terminology. Really long story short, about 2019, somebody was transferred to the prison I was in, an incarcerated person named Stevie Wilson, who introduced us to political education, introduced us to works by Angela Davis and different, liberation theories. That was an important time because 2020 came and the George Floyd rebellions came, and we were already actively doing political organizing. We had started a print publication called In the Belly, which is a collection of abolitionist writings by incarcerated people for incarcerated people. It's an explicitly abolitionist publication. We had started a podcast called In the Mix, where we were doing a podcast from the inside. We were doing inside-outside study groups, linking incarcerated people to free world activists, and then studying political education material together. We had a lot of different projects going on in that time period. And I came home last year, the beginning of last year. And we've continued to develop those projects. I think one thing that was important for us to learn early on in our organizing inside is that we are part of a tradition and a lineage of organizing, right? That actually abolitionist organizing is more than just about prison. It's about understanding the fact that the state uses prison as a weapon for social control to maintain capitalism, patriarchy, heteronormativity. I mean, we can go down the list on what prison is used to control. But point here is that, came home and have been continuing to try to connect to various different fields of organizing. So, yeah.
And Saphir, can I just follow up? I love the name Study and Struggle as an organization. Like, what more do we need? Study, struggle, and some vibes, and that's it. What do you see as some of the biggest, wins that you guys have had in your fight, in your revolutionary movements?
I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, practically, I think some of the biggest wins I've seen have been the personal transformations of the people around me. You know, I mean, I think we have to have an internationalist framework, but it starts with the people closest to you. Like, organizing isn't something that just happens in these big rooms like this or just, you know, in a study circle. It happens with the people that are right around you. So that's what I've seen the most success. That, you know, my community has grown, the people around me have grown and continue to grow.
Beautiful.
All right, cool. Thank you. First, make some noise if y'all happy to be here and have been learning so much. Yeah, it's very welcoming, very inspiring. I've been talking to people. I said my purpose here wasn't to be on this panel, even though this has been an opportunity. My purpose has been here to really network, to really hear how many freedom fighters, how many just leaders that's doing the same work that I have done, that we are doing, the struggles. I like to take that deep breath because it just reminds me that we are human. And as we do this work, it's people on the yard right now that's getting ready for yard, that's coming in from yard, that's taking that same air and trying to get to where we are. So that's just a reminder that I like to do. Yeah, so my name is Adam Cain. I'm from California, Cali in the house. Woo, woo. I'm not going to be long because I can't be long-winded as an entertainer, but I'm going to be short and sweet, straight to the point. How did I get here? How did this start? Like I said, I'm from California. Anybody know anything about California? It's very, it's a lot of gang culture going on, so I got involved in the gang culture as a youngin'. I grew up in a two-parent household. I had everything that anyone of my skin tone, or me being a male, I should say, I was privileged to have. 2 parents, brothers, sisters, family. However, I got involved into the street life. The street life led me to make poor decisions, ultimately led me to prison. I went to trial in 2008. I got a hung jury, which is a deadlock. I don't think I need to explain that. I'm preaching to the choir, right? But sometimes I have to explain. They're like, what is that? So 11 guilty, 1 not guilty. Then I was offered a deal for 21 years. At that moment, I was like, okay, I got to do something with my life. My co-defendant at the time, he took 41 years because they offered me 5 years to tell on him. And I was like, I'm not going to do that just based on I know I had something to do with it, right? So accountability, that was my first introduction to accountability and getting into this work. And so at that moment, I knew, okay, I had to make a change. I took the 21 years as he took the 41 years. Eric, I love you, bro. We still doing the work. I know you inside, and I know you still doing the work in there. So I got sent to prison. Time went on. I started off at a level 4. Mind you, California is considered one of the worst prisons systems in the world. On a level 4, 23-hour lockdown, like certain people had mentioned that they experienced. I was young. I said, okay, I need to make a change. Surrounded myself around certain people that enlightened me, and that was my first introduction to organizing, which I had no clue. Time went on. I began to drop levels because I started studying a lot, doing good, making changes. And then I end up going to this prison, and this was in 2015. I had a close friend of mine that had paroled, and when he paroled, I stayed in contact with him through his partner at the time. And he ended up coming back, but I stayed in contact with her, and then I got this survey. This survey came from Initiate Justice, right? And I'm like, wow, what is this? I didn't even, honestly, I'm gonna be real, I didn't even care about the name at first, right? It was like, it sounds cute, right? Initiate Justice, okay. What is this, right? Initiate Justice, I love y'all. IJ, I love y'all. I'm being real, it's very real right now. And I seen it was the questions that really got me, that just caught my attention because my voice was being heard. They was asking me questions like, what was you in here for? Where did you live before? How did you grow up? They was asking all these different kind of questions, and I'm like, yo, this is it. Like, who is these people? And so, thank you, Tanya Ford, for sending me that survey, because that survey literally changed the trajectory of my life, and not just my life, but many others. And so I filled out the survey. And once again, this is where the organizing come in. Because I surrounded myself with gentlemen that knew how to organize inside, I said, wait a minute, I can't hold this information to myself. I need to make copies. So when you are in position and you are a leader, you have to live up to that. I was a lead clerk at the time, and I had something that we call juice, which is a great relationship, if you will, with staff. All the COs loved me. They used to clown me, call me skinny jeans, because I was the only person in prison walking around in skinny jeans, right? So it's now from skinny jeans to skinny suits. But anyways, so I made copies, right? I made copies, passed them around to everybody, and people like, yo, what is this? I'm like, yo, it don't even matter. Fill it out, bro. They want to hear your voice. Like, what? We gotta talk that talk. So, I became more of an entertainer because I knew how to identify with people in the needs, right? I couldn't talk to everybody with the law terms, so I had to find my ways. And once again, this is all leading up to organizing, and as we continue the panel, I'm sure I'll explain more. So that was my introduction to Initiate Justice. Now, what is Initiate Justice? Have anybody ever heard Initiate Justice outside of me saying it? Me. Okay. Oh, come on now. We do work in the same state. You know how we do it? Okay, cool. So Initiate Justice, who are we? What are we? A 501c3 organization. But like I said yesterday, we are a feminist, policy, abolitionist organization. The list goes on. However, we are not lawyers, right? We don't take on cases. But we do have great relationships with other organizations, other people that are lawyers, which kind of go hands to hand with the work that we do when it comes to inside and outside organizing. We are a policy organization, like I explained. We have been able to get bills authorized by senators, assembly members, and we have been able to get them passed by the peoples. If they had to go to the peoples, one of our biggest wins was being able to restore the voting rights to people that's on parole or probation following incarceration. Yeah, for sure. And so that's some of the things that we do. Our mission is to end incarceration, not mass incarceration. I want to be clear. We want to end incarceration by uplifting the voices and educating them on the political power that they have, because they are directly impacted. Like we said many times, people that's closest to the problem are closest to the solution, and that's good and all, but it means nothing if we are not doing the work. And so with Initiate Justice, we take an approach of inside and outside organizing. I like to share with people, I should say, we are a modern day civil rights movement. A lot of things that took place in the civil rights movement is still happening today, and we carrying that torch from some of the ones that led before us. That's who we are. We love to organize. We love to connect and see how we can make collaborations possible, because without collaborating with others and individuals, a lot of this work that we do would not exist. It does take a team of different people and seeing people where they are, and that's where the intersection comes into play with the work that we do when it comes to organizing. Once again, I'm very grateful, blessed to be here, and I enjoyed everything that's been said. I enjoyed all the conversations, and yeah. Pass it to you. I feel like that's a safe space to just stop. So, thank you.
And I think I got to say, it's heartening to hear from all of you that the lasting impacts of George Floyd, and also even the quote positive things that came from COVID. It's heartening to hear that as a thread in what you're all talking about. But I want to pick up on a thread of yours, Pam, when you spoke about abolition and you spoke about these systems that we collaborate with. I found 14 years ago, I founded a college program in prison via John Jay College, where I teach, called the Prison to College Pipeline, or co-founded, I should say. And I also want to conjure a name into the room, and that's Roland Davis. He is the co-founder from the inside. I think anyone who's built any program in prison from the outside knows that you don't build it, you co-build it with the incarcerated individuals who make it possible. And Roland Davis is the co-founder. And in a decade of running that, building and running that program, which is, we all know this is manic depressive work. The highs are high, the lows are low. It's a lot. It's intense. And in many ways, the most frustrating part was having to be in bed with the Department of Corrections, and as an abolitionist, knowing that in some way I was propping up the very system that I'm trying to tear down. And so I wanted to ask all of you to reflect on this grappling. What it means to work with systems that we wish didn't exist. How do you grapple with that, and how do you navigate that? I also remember when my book, Incarceration Nations, came out, I was terrified that it would make it inside. All the guys, my students were saying, Boz, bring us your book. And I was like, no, guys. And of course it made it in there. Somebody ordered it. And I didn't want the folks inside reading it, because I don't need them to know who I really am. Not the students and the incarcerated individuals, I mean the staff. So how do you all navigate that?
Yeah, sure, I can start it off. For me, working with the institution or not working with the institution is a question of tactics and not a goal in and of itself, right? Like, for example, if we say, okay, under this material condition, for XYZ reasons, we decided to work with the prison for what, right? Like, we decided to work with the prison. That should not be the goal in and of itself. Like, work with the prison because we want to get better access to the mailroom, video visits, getting, people, higher education, right? So working with the institution or not is a question of tactics, not the goal in and of itself. And just like any other tactic, electoral politics, like we can run the list down, right? We're asking ourselves, how does this line up with our goals and with our principles, right? So, taking that a little bit further, we could say, okay, if we share the same goal, I'm not too concerned about what tactics you're using, as long as we're all trying to get towards that goal. If we're saying the goal, listen, like, you made clear earlier that the goal wasn't to end mass incarceration, it was to end incarceration.
Yes.
I'm not too concerned about their tactics and what they're doing over there. I know we're sharing similar goals, right? For In the Belly in particular, no, we're a subversive project. We don't work with the prison. We don't work with the police. Everything we do is pretty much against the rules because the rules are oppressive and unjust, right? Like, we have editors, inside editors that work directly in determining the direction of the project. They get paid, right? This is all against prison rules, right? Like, we can't pay our people inside, right? Like, so we don't ask the prison for permission. That's us, though. That's us, our particular goal, our particular avenue. That's what we determined in this lane right here, right? But when we're talking about, like, okay, yes, we decided to work with a warden. We decided to sit down with a judge, and we start talking about just for the sake of the relationship, just because you want to get closer to power. Now I need to, like, of course, we know these institutions have power. These are big institutions inside of the world's largest empire. They're very powerful, right? And we know if we assimilate to them, right, we know we can sell out. We can sell out, and if you're eloquent enough, you look good enough, you got a good enough image, they're going to give you some money. They're going to do it. But is that the type of power that we're looking for? Is that the power that we want? Is that the power that we need to change the system? Right? So these are the type of questions that we're asking within In the Belly. Early on, again, we understood ourselves as not just some like incarcerated people that needed some help. We understood ourselves as part of a global liberation project, and we understood ourselves as actually being inside of the heart of the empire. And yeah, just like to close that out a little bit, I think what we need right now is a diversity of tactics, but we need strong principles and clear goals.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to collaborate with anybody else that shares that mind frame.
So now we get into organizing, right? Because you got to develop relationships. So Taina Vargas and Edmund, right, and Rich Edmund Vargas, Rich Vargas, they was married, right? Taina seen a variety of things that was going on with CDCR, which is California Department of Correction Rehabilitation, right? Coming in, visiting her husband. Rich was seeing a variety of things that was taking place as an incarcerated person, and him going out to visit to see his wife, right? And so that was the birth of Initiate Justice, because they like, yo, it's a lot going on. It's a lot of equality. Not equality. It's a lot of division going on. It's a lot that's going on in the visiting room, especially with the way CDCR officers move, the way they're trained to move. Not all of them, but the way they are trained to move. At some point, you have to work with CDCR if you want to go inside a visitation. So when we look at the challenges and how do we approach these challenges, each institution is very, very different, right? My approach going to one facility is going to be different. And how do we overcome those challenges on a small scale is building those relationships, right? So what that looks like for me and Lee, shout out to Lee Gibson, who happens to be my manager. He's not here, but I love you, bro. Me and him, we really understand community organizing, right? And it's like when we look at organizing, there's so many different levels to it, right? But as a community organizer, that means, going back to what I was saying earlier, I have to find the strengths in people and be able to utilize and tap in on that, right? Because that's a gift, right? It's a way that you organize that's going to be different than the way she organized. But I may need to use her in this certain situation. And so getting to the challenges is we really me and Lee lean on, because we run the inside department, right? The inside organizing department. We have tons of inside organizers, a little bit over 400 inside organizers. Inside organizers is made up of people that's advocating, that's doing some of the same work. It's filled with jailhouse lawyers. I mean, the list goes on of how many people are involved in organizing, right? And then we have a membership base. A membership base, it's 100,000 people in California, a little bit under. We got half of that's members. So they're getting the information. So I'm leading that to say, and in conclusion is, when we look at challenges, we have to be able to utilize. Sometimes Lee have to be the one to speak to maybe the CRM, which means for community resource manager. This is the person that's the community resource manager. They are responsible for allowing resources like us, right, the orgs that we work at, to go in to provide a service, right? I don't really like to say a service, but in those terms, to provide a service, because that's how they see it. But we're providing education, we're providing knowledge, we're providing information, and that's how we make the change. And so when it comes with challenges, it may not always be the CRM. Sometimes we have had CRMs that gave us a hard time. Well, you know what? We got an inside organizer that's at this facility. Same CRM giving us a hassle, but that same CRM loves the chapel. Okay, so look, we get on the phone with our inside organizers because we in conversation. We in conversation with our inside organizers. So it's being able to utilize and being able to say, hey, we may not be able to come in right here, but the brother talked about it. Tactics and strategies. When it comes to the challenges, we got to have a tactic. We got to have a strategy. So it's multiple ways, and it's not just like, okay, this is it. It's multiple ways. Sometimes I've got on phone calls. Sometimes it's been emails. Sometimes, like, this is a true story. I'm getting ready to go to a facility, and me being able to go to that facility started from a post that I seen on Instagram. Oh, this is my homegirl. I DM'd her, hey, what's up? Plug us in. Boom, we got the access in. See what I'm saying? So when we look at organizing, we got to utilize all the different angles, even in the challenges, because the challenges is going to come most when we're outside going in because they think we're trying to do something bad. And it's like, no, we're not trying to do something bad. We're actually trying to do something good that's bad for y'all. You know what I'm saying? So, it's just different strategies and just understanding like, okay, this warden may be tripping, but I guarantee if we get in front of that warden, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, we need y'all in here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because once you got their attention, what are you going to do with it? And if you come talking something that they can't see, a collaboration, they're going to be like, yeah, no, because they know we're trying to shut stuff down. They're trying to shut us down. But if we make that connection as humans and say, well, hey, California model, like you talked about, okay, that's a tactic. Let's lean on that. Some of us may believe in the model, some of us may not. It goes different ways. But if this is an avenue, I should say, to get inside, right, because we know the challenges, then, hey, we're going to utilize that. So when is the next resource fair? And then from there, I can build a relationship with developing and having workshops, presenting, and then, getting clear to where I could just go into the access. And for me, it was a little bit, not hard, but it was a little bit different because I served 14 and a half years. But because of what I've done, paroling from CDCR as a firefighter, but starting off in the system as deemed as a violent offender, as I weigh on that too. You know what I'm saying? So you like when we have these challenges, we gotta really go in the think tank and be like, okay, if this don't work, boom, we gotta do this. If that don't work, we gotta do this. And if that don't absolutely work, okay, let me call in my collaborators. Hey, Jody, you got to connect it over there? Yeah, I do. Well, can you plug me in? Yeah, got you. And we keep the train going. And like we say, some people get on the train for the long ride, and some people like, I think I'm gonna get off right here, right? Some of us like, nah, we ain't getting off. We just gonna go to sleep, but we still on this train though. You feel what I'm saying? So with that, I'll pass it. Thank you.
You got to be nimble. That's such a powerful example. I think it makes me. There's a Madiba quote. We got to quote Madiba, but where he says that, and I'm going to mess up some words, but the essence of it is the first thing is to be honest with yourself, You can't have an impact on society until
Yes.
you change yourself. And it makes me think of what you were saying, Sophia, in terms of, your North Star should be your authenticity in this work. And that shows up. And we have a saying in New York, real recognize real. So what you just described, Pam, is a scenario where they recognize that you guys are real. And even as as the enemy in that context, they're still going to recognize that authenticity in the work, and I think that's really powerful. So I was given an extension because we started a little late, so we can go until 11:15. So I have one more question for you all, being mindful of time, and that's to reflect on the holistic nature of this work. We're all doing many things in this work. What does that look like? And how does that holistic lens shape how you show up in this work and in this space?
Yeah, I think it starts with asking. I think it started with us asking. Like, we were doing organizing inside. We didn't have really a lot of outside support. We were reaching out to different so-called abolitionists and revolutionary organizations. And we started asking the question, when was the last time an incarcerated person made a decision in your organization? Like, when was the last time, right? Like, made a decision that actually mattered? That moved into, like, actually getting a sense of our autonomy and being like, well, actually, when was the last time you gave somebody inside a budget to do something? You like the same way you would give somebody a budget, or they have a million different ways that they give people money through the university out here. Like, why are you not doing that for people inside? Like, where's the equity at? And then I started realizing there's a real, like, commoditization of trauma and, like, a big business that's happening, like, out of this whole thing. But that's really, like, kind of like a side point. So it started with asking that question, kind of building up some autonomy, and then I think it moves into wahdatul sahat. That's what the Palestinian. So there's an ongoing genocide right now. Like, I would be remiss not to mention it. Free Palestine, and I think. I think that's a holistic approach, right? It's actually looking at everything in full. It's being intersectional and saying, where is the prison lining up? I mean, I was locked up looking at what was going on in Palestine, and very clear, I was like, these people are locked up. Like, they're locked up before I had any real political understanding about Zionism or anything like that. So it started with building up identity around our personal autonomy and collective autonomy, moving into thinking an international approach, right? How are carceral systems being used around the world to uphold white supremacy and capitalism, right? And then realizing again that it's not actually about the prison. It's about, there's a state, this is the state, we live in the empire, and it uses prison, police, as a tactic to maintain itself. It's a tactic for social control. And it's moving beyond this framework, of we're just supporting incarcerated people, and transcending into a unity of fields, right? Where all of us in this respective work are upholding that tradition of liberation, moving into a unity of fields, and even within, like, jailhouse lawyering in particular. I have a couple of my close friends. Like, I don't consider myself a jailhouse lawyer. I think it's a respected field that people learn and study in. A couple of my friends are jailhouse lawyers, right? I spoke to a couple of them yesterday before I came on here. What does it mean to transcend the limits of jailhouse lawyering? And I'll wrap up with this point. Like, we know this is a skill people learn. People go through in the county. Some people try to learn their case. Maybe they don't. Maybe they go upstate. They spend all the time in the law library. They're learning about their appeal. They're learning how to fight civil suits. They're saying, so many people I know said, like, I wish I would have known this at the very beginning, right? I wish I would have known this in the very beginning. Well, there are people facing political repression right now for Palestine organizing, right? They are facing active criminal charges, right? actually prison abolitionist Casey Goonan, who was doing this work for years, supporting incarcerated people inside, now has an active federal indictment, right, for allegedly supporting the Berkeley encampments in California, out where y'all are at, facing active federal charges right now. Well, I would like to know a couple of jailhouse lawyers from the feds that want to transcend the limits of jailhouse lawyering, move into this criminal litigation, and try to start a unity of fields and fighting for liberation, right? Like, how can we actually move past these limits? And if you want to do that, please come holler at me. And,
Speaking from an inside-outside approach, when we're looking at, the overall goal, right? Like I said, it's to end incarceration, right? How do we get there? We all got many different ways to get there. Just like last night, there's many different ways to get to the venue. We all got there, had a great time, right? So, I like to use analogies so people kind of follow me like, oh, what are you talking about? Just in case somebody went to sleep on me. I'm just playing. But for real, when we look at that, it's always an inside-outside approach, right? Yeah, we are working on the inside. A lot of great work taking place on the inside. But once again, when we're talking organizing and we're talking about holistic and, okay, like what's the goal, like what strategies, tactics, et cetera, right? It's important for us to be able to address or have people in position to address the harm before it happens, right? And so what that looks like is like, I use myself for an example. Incarcerated, I learned certain things before coming to prison, and then that led me to prison. Then I learned additional things to keep me in prison or to allow me to come home, stay into that lifestyle to go back, right? It's the cycle. So if we're trying to break that cycle, for me, I had to think, okay, I gotta shift. I gotta be around people that's influential, right? Because I have been around people that was influential inside of prison. I was down 30 years at the time that shared with me some of the hardened truths of what I need to do to change to make this place better, right? I started doing that, right? And then I passed that on. What I'm saying is because I've learned all that, I have been able to come home to be successful. So I don't have to worry about getting involved in that lifestyle, right? That cycle is broke. So we have people that's inside doing the work, coming home and now passing this on to our little ones, to people that's lost and providing the opportunity and resources and opportunity, because I believe those work hand in hand, right? Then we can start really looking at okay, a holistic, but it's just not going to be us. When we talking holistic, it's connected, right? So attorneys and lawyers breaks down and interpret the law, right? It wouldn't be no attorneys if we didn't have legislation. So in order for things to be holistic, right, we got to be able to work from the bottom up, right, and then from the top down. And I think that's our approach. When I'm speaking about organizing, once again, when we look at organizing, saying, what's the overall goal, right? How do we get this? And so for me and for Initiate Justice, that's the approach that we take. You know what I'm saying? We want to make sure that we are reaching the people at the top. I want to make sure I can have good relationships with senators, good relationships with assembly members, right? Because these are the lawmakers. You know what I'm saying? And then, if something ain't right, before we even get to creating these laws, that's why it's, once again, interconnected, and it's good to make great connections, because before we even get this bill or this law passed, right, or to even get authorized, that's where we bring in the attorneys, right? I can't do it. I could do a little bit of research, but I can't really interpret and break it down. So, it's just about being able, once again, utilize people's powers and not powers, but people's strengths. And once we are able to say, okay, these are their strengths, that's where we have to be able to support them just as much as we want to support, right? And so now what does that look like? Now I got, for example, Proposition 57 in California was a prop that opened up the door for me to come home in 2024 because I was a violent offender. I wasn't able to get milestones, credits, and none of that. But because that bill passed, I was able to go to school, college. I was already doing it before because I was on that wave. But holistically and wrapping this up, when that bill passed, the same people that I saw that I was like, yo, F school, yo, this and this and this, oh, you better believe when that proposition passed by the peoples, they was trying to go to school to get that 3 weeks off. Yeah. See what I'm saying? And that's a small goal, but for us, that's something that's like, oh my God, that's amazing. So using that as an approach, I feel like that's how we're going to be able to come to this community to where we are having people that are formerly incarcerated, like a lot of us, that are coming home being successful. And when I say successful, not because of the clothes or the money or whatever, I'm saying successful in being able to share the information, share the knowledge for us to create our own cycle, right? To create our own system. With Initiate Justice, we all are directly impacted. Everybody that works from the board, everybody have been directly impacted. When I say directly, it's not just people that's incarcerated. My wife right here have been with me for my time, off and on, but I'm saying she's been with me, but she's been impacted, right? My whole system, my whole time in that system, she was impacted, you know what I mean? But for me to be able to learn and come home and do what I needed to do, right now, my impact of me being impacted, we took that, and now we have flipped and be able to turn to something powerful. Now, I got so many friends that's like coming home that's in the same position as me, being successful. And whatever, however people define it, I just like to say, being able to have the knowledge, information, and pass it on, because without that, I wounn't be here. You know what I'm saying? If Tanya didn't send me that survey, I would have had no knowledge to initiate justice. So I think that's the approach, just inside out, from the bottom to the top, from the top to the bottom, making sure that we are utilizing our resources accurately. You know what I'm saying? Thank you.